Super special day today. We have an in-house guest in studio, in office, whatever we're going to call it. Ty Garrett with DataFlix. Like, you guys are right up the road in Knoxville, so we're able to talk him into coming down here to Chattanooga. My glasses are getting foggy. And we're going to do a little chit chat here. We're going to talk about all things data. So Ty, tell me a little bit about you. Tell me where'd you come from? How'd you get into real estate? And then let's talk about data some.
Yeah, for sure. So my real estate journey started about in 2018, like right before the pandemic, before everything was getting super crazy and competitive as it is today. And I started because I dropped out of school, wasn't really happy with like the traditional kind of start as far as, getting a job and all that good stuff.
What were you going to school for?
So I was going for computer science and accounting. Okay. And I didn't really learn I didn't stay long enough to learn anything about that.
Okay. How long did you actually stay?
I was there for about a year and a half. Okay. So I just finished like all of kind of the prerequisites and things like that. And then I realized it wasn't really my learning style. Yeah. And I knew I wanted to be in real estate just because like I saw a lot of like, you know how it goes, gurus, influencers, YouTubers, whatever you want to call them. And that was something that I really wanted to do. So I realized pretty quickly that college was not going to be the route for that. So I dropped out pretty quick.
So how did you find real estate? Like where was your first introduction to this weird thing?
Yep. So I found it first. I don't know if you remember Fortune Builders.
I do.
So the way Fortune Builders worked at the time was they were running like radio ads.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And my mom actually heard a radio ad and was like, "Hey, I know you like brought up real estate. You should like go to this. It's like $100." And I went and got pretty hooked on the idea and thought of it really, really fast. And from there, I got into probably more of like just getting into the event space, like watching a lot of like content and all that good stuff. I realized I needed a lot more money than what. So I got into a little bit of like kind of side hustles in the e-commerce space, got enough money to save up to actually buy some education. Yeah. And at the time I was a loan officer and also an appraiser doing like loans and kind of like underwriting if it was a good deal or not. Cause I was like, logically, if I want to do some flips, I need to know how to like appraise a house and like what it's worth. I realized I overthought that big time. Yeah. And from there, I joined their, like, I think their mid-tier package has been so long. I think it was like 35,000. And that was like the big kind of like point of where after I paid for that, the conviction that I had to like be as bought in as possible really set in. I got my first deal and I was really, really active in a community, which was Fortune Builders at the time, obviously. And that's where I got scooped up by another company, Results Driven, if you guys know who they are. Yep. And at the time, this was just Healshomes. There was no Results Driven. And I was working directly with Tiffany and Josh. And I realized pretty fast that I loved what I was doing. And I really just wanted to kind of go to the next phase and do my own thing after about a year of working with them. And, I really wanted to understand like the ropes and like kind of the foundational pieces first. And then I moved on to kind of start my own thing. And then I found this hole in marketing and data, which is kind of created DataFlix.
Right. Wow. That's pretty wild. So you were doing a lot of the marketing and data stuff for Tiffany and Josh, who are awesome, by the way, you guys. If you aren't following them, you should be. And all right. So like, what was your vision for DataFlix when you started?
So the biggest reason that we started DataFlix was I've been running a lot of the marketing systems at Healshomes at the time. And I also right when we left there, I started doing my own thing and I realized how terrible data was. And really the only good option was to kind of scrape and pull your own data. This is before a lot of like the big providers that you guys know today existed. So once we started pulling our own data and seeing much better results, that was kind of like the whole and like aha moment of like, hey, we can do this for other people and kind of productize it. Yeah. So we started productizing it in our own business, making sure it worked. And then we very, very slowly, like right in the March of 2020, like right when the pandemic started is when the business really started to kind of take off because obviously the real estate, housing market, all that good stuff was booming. And that was like our first kind of like year in business where we were doing mainly scraping of auditors and recording databases and then just reselling that data. Yeah. So think about really high quality, like distress lists.
So when you were on the other side and you were seeing that you just weren't getting the data that you wanted, like what were some of those problems? Like, because I think people just, they may have those struggles, but they don't realize that there's a better solution. Like, so what were some of the problems that you guys were having trying to pull lists and get the best data for your company?
So most data companies today are reselling kind of like raw information. So the biggest thing for us is we're like, if we can go to the county directly, whether that be like the recorder or the auditor or just anything specifically on that website, we could pull it and be kind of the first to market. Okay. And the entire concept of DataFlix was, okay, we really need to be the first people to do outreach to this actual seller and just get to them before anyone else does. So the kind of first version of that was really just focusing on one, like we got to find the county that we want to be in and find the actual recorder site and the auditor site to pull like the best, fastest, like distress data. But as we've like gone on and like DataFlix gotten bigger and things like that, now it's more about predicting who would actually sell, not only sell in general, but sell to an investor. So we're predicting about 4 to 6 months out of like, you know, this is kind of the decision-making process a seller would go in. And now we're trying to predict when they would sell, and you can market to them preemptively, very similar to how you would do traditional marketing by just pulling distress data from the county, like right when the week it hits.
Okay. All right. Hold on. We're going a little fast here for me because I'm not that smart. I'm just a simple caveman wholesaler. So you have all the data, and then you said, well, based on the data that we've got, let's see if we can figure out who is most likely to sell.
Yep.
Like, I think as a wholesaler, I did that, but I'd be like, oh, well, an absentee owner who's owned it for 10 years might be willing to sell. But you guys seemed like you've taken that to like this whole other stratosphere.
Yep. So the way, like, I'll kind of give you like when we first started versus like what it is today.
Okay.
So when we first started, it's like, hey, here is really distressed data, and these people are in a financial like distress of some capacity.
Okay.
And they would be good people to reach out to, and we're going to get you that lead as fast as possible, like the week that it hits. Now it's more about, you know, we're very transparent about like how we do things. So the way that we have our database structured and really like kind of what is like our moat or like our piece of just technology that's really sets us apart is first we have First American, which is our housing data provider.
Nice.
And they're the largest title company in the US. They have the best data by far. And that's everything from a tax assessor to a mortgage database, involuntary lien data, everything that you would want to physically know about a property characteristic or the owner themselves and things of that nature. Now we also have on the other side of this, like all this demographic data. And the best way to explain this is we pull this data from LexisNexis. They're probably one of the largest data companies on the planet. And we pull everything from age to like what their income is and every single demographic data point that you can physically have that like, you know, is regulatory allowed. And
and maybe some that's not.
And maybe some that, you know, most
it's
people
gray area, you know.
So we pull everything that we're allowed to get as far as like the actual people data, and then we merge that to the housing data. So from there, we have a very, very nice kind of robust database as far as like everything you'd want to know about the property and the person that owns it.
So, and this is probably getting way into the weeds. So when you're saying, okay, I want to know, like I'm going to pull an certain age group because I think they are most likely to sell. Like you're inputting that, right? Like I want people between 42 and 46. Like where do those numbers come from? Like what backs up that data?
So from our perspective, we have every single investor transaction that's happened over the last 3 years. And this is kind of like a manual tagging system where we're like, this person sold to an investor, this person sold with a realtor on the MLS. And we know exactly like who those people are. So really all our models are trying to do is find the people who look just like the ones who sold to an investor, just like a lookalike audience on Facebook.
Wow.
And the higher that number is, the more closely they represent someone who has sold to an investor in the past. And the way that you do that is all of our demographic data, all of our housing data, and then the last kind of component is just individual distressors. And by distressors, it's a very loose term. I just mean like 32 unique lists. So an example of this would be anything from free and clear high equity all the way to every type of like pre-foreclosure, all the way to their income and their credit, things of that nature. And then some of the more unique things that everyone knows about, like probate, divorce, inheritance, all the common lists.
Wow.
So when you take all of those things together and then you look at who sold to an investor, there's very specific patterns that you see.
Nice. So if I get a list from you, I feel like my guess would be, because I haven't used you, but because we don't wholesale anymore, but if I feel like the list that you're going to give me is highly motivated and I'm more likely to, like, let's say I call 100 leads from somebody else that I download out of PropStream and I call 100 of your people should have a higher hit rate.
Yeah. So the entire goal that we're trying to do is we want you to reach out to the fewest amount of people possible to get the most results possible.
Love that.
And we want to get you as much as the least amount of friction to get a deal as possible. So we completely stack the list for you. We skip trace it for you. And then you're getting a monthly file that has all the data you need. You're going to download that and then upload it to all your marketing softwares or send it to your mail house exactly how you want it. And we do things like actually giving you an optimized buy box and everything that you would actually need to do as far as the list stacking too. And all that's just done for you.
So do you know if your client is like a rehabber or a wholesaler or, and you kind of plug that in and give them exactly what they're looking for?
Yeah. So an example of this, we have a tool called the Market Map. And the Market Map is specifically designed to this zip code or this neighborhood or this county has X amount of transactions that happen a month. And we're really just trying to help you find as much market share from that area as possible. So when you're talking about making a selection on, depending on your exit strategy, right? So we've got wholesaling and flipping as an example.
Yeah.
So we know the amount of investor transactions that are going on in every market. So if you're doing a lot of wholesaling deals and that investor transaction volume is low in an area, wholesaling is not going to work for you at all.
So you would tell me that hey, I don't know that this is the best place.
Exactly. So the way that our process works is you come to us and you're like, okay, what are you doing for marketing? What are your goals? What's your exit strategies? Things like that. And we're going to tell you if you're trying to be in this market, this is what's going to work. If you're trying to be in this market, this is what's going to work, and really kind of provide that consultative approach with the best data possible.
Wow. Okay. So let's say I wanted to buy Chattanooga. Am I going to compete with 20 other people getting that same list?
So we do provide exclusivity, and it's typically 1 to 5 licenses depending on the area that you're actually buying in. Okay. So an example is Los Angeles County. There's about 2 million homes there. 5 people are going to get that list because you'll never run into each other, and it's just a massive, massive market. Yeah. Now imagine on the other side of that, we've got rural county, Texas. There's probably only a handful of transactions there. We're only going to sell that to one person.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. And then am I paying for the city, or is it just based off the number of results that we get?
So the way that our pricing works is it's anywhere from $500 to $2,500 a month. And that is obviously giving the exclusive piece, but also giving you as many records as you want in the actual market itself. Yeah. And the other component is it's completely skip trace, and we will do any set as far as setting up the data or curating it for a mail list, for a cold calling list. It's all customized based on whatever your needs are.
That's cheap. One thing when we used to, it is because I don't know if I didn't tell you this when we were at lunch, we used to do 70,000 texts a week. You know what kind of data burn you go through? It's the worst. And then, once texting got a little more regulated, we had to, of course, wean it down a little bit. Yep. But when I was running Nationwide Property Liquidators, that was our biggest pain in the butt every day was I literally had a marketing manager that I paid $40,000 a year to, and she would come over and go, okay, what city now? What list? Which one do you want to pull? And it was every day I felt like my life was consumed with, okay, let's pull absentees in West Virginia, Richmond County, whatever it is, right? It was just constantly. So I had to pay for the list, right? Because nobody gives you free downloads. I had the labor that was involved in it. Then I had to skip trace it. And I could just pay you one time and you just do all of that.
So it's on a monthly recurring basis. Yeah. So every month we will do pretty much everything you just said. Yeah. And we also re-skip it for you. So we get asked that a lot is what is your skip tracing like as well? So we use a company called Informium for this, and we buy about 6,000 sources of information. So an example of this is imagine you've got someone and you've got their utility bill. Yeah. So utility companies or credit card companies, all those people sell your data, just so everyone knows that.
Yeah, I love talking about that because people are like, I don't want my information out there. Too late. Yeah. It's all there.
I promise if you really don't want your data sold, you probably can't use 95% of consumer goods, I would say.
I had this weird thing. I went to the Walmart where'd I go? Yeah, I went to the Walmart grocery store, a little tiny thing. And I remember I bought some stuff, and that night or the next day I'm on Walmart.com and I'm just going to order something, jeans or something. I don't remember what it was. Oh, yeah. And it's would you like to buy again all the stuff I bought yesterday? And that was on my debit card. I wasn't logged into Walmart.com, but somehow it connected that with my credit card with this account and came up and said, would you like these things? So yeah, everybody is selling your data. 100%.
For sure. So a good example of one of those sources of the 6,000, well, two really. So Visa is one, which is obviously I would say they probably have
So
90%.
not only hitting me for late charges and all that stuff, but they're selling my data too.
Yep. And Costco actually is a good example.
Really?
Yeah. So like an example of this would be, so say you've got an active account at one of those places,
Yeah.
and you have a phone number on file for one of those actual accounts. Anytime that account is hit or used, it has a last seen date on our database. So it'll be a phone number that's associated with this person and then the last seen date of that. And that's how we use all of our skip tracing.
Wow.
So if there was a last seen date of last month, then there's pretty high likelihood that it's an active number and that's definitely associated with that person, but more than likely it's probably that person's phone number.
Wow. So when we were, again, doing all that skip tracing and cold calling, I used to tell people, 60% of the stuff that's going to come back in a skip trace is probably bad information.
At least 60.
And it's not that it's bad info, it's just outdated.
For sure.
And what I would show people is I would pull me up through like People Finders or something. I'd be like, yeah, that was my number when I lived in Miami 30 years ago, right? That was a good address. That was a good phone number, but it's not anymore. Right?
Exactly.
So I love that you've got that last scene date. That's clever.
So the way that we tell people to organize that is they can pull up their list and they can actually filter by the last time it was seen to increase the likelihood to have better call connections if you're cold calling or if you're texting.
Because that's the worst
that.
Is wrong number or do or like a bad number, whatever it is.
Yep.
Wow, man, that's awesome.
So we pull about 3 to 4 numbers per record as well, and obviously 3 of them are going to be wrong. Mm-hmm. So 75%.
Yeah, there's only one that'll be right.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's how our database works. And so just to kind of recap, we've got the housing data, we've got our people data, the skip tracing data, and then those 32 lists that really kind of, when you combine all that together, you get like a symphony of good data.
So explain the list stacking, because I know that's a term that's thrown around a lot. And I don't know if a lot of people understand that.
Yep. So the way that list stacking traditionally means you're going to buy individual lists and then you're going to put them into a software or into Excel and actually merge them together.
So a list like death, or probate, divorce,
pre-foreclosure, vacant are huge. So imagine
evictions, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're going to go buy a pre-foreclosure list and then you're going to go buy a vacant list. And then say you have 123 Main Street and 123 Main Street appeared on both lists. So you're going to see that there's going to be a 2 there. And then you're going to see that these were both lists that were present. Traditionally, that's how list stacking works. The way that we do it is we're taking all 32 of those lists and essentially saying, hey, out of all of these 32, here's every single list that's present, and we super stack all of that for you. And
super stack, I love that.
And then we provide that with the score, the investor score, which is our obviously like our bread and butter. And just to kind of give some perspective on the score itself, so every property that's 50 to 100 is going to be on your list that we give you, and assuming that it fits your buy box and the areas that you're trying to focus in.
So most of it doesn't qualify. Most of it shouldn't be on the list.
Exactly. So if you were to get a percentage of records, say there's 100,000 homes in an area, the amount of properties are going to be between 50 to 100 on average is going to be about 15% of that. So right at 15,000 records. Yeah. And from that 15%, we're going to predict 60 to 70% of the investor transactions that happen in your market. And that's kind of like our bread and butter and like what we're known for.
Wow. So here's what I always explain to people. For us, for our transactions company, the reason that we're so valuable is because investors go out and do exactly what you're talking about, right? They look for death, divorce, probate, bad tenant, whatever it is. And if you stack all of those things, right? Yeah, those are all pain points. And our job as an investor, the more pain points we can solve, the lower the price.
Exactly.
But then to get to closing the property, you have to clear all those problems off. That's where we would come in and work with your people or whoever it is and get those deals closed.
I've never heard the pain example, but it's so true. Like the more distressed someone is, if they actually have to sell, the better that deal is going to be because of the amount of work that you have to do to get into it, and you're going to earn that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've had deals where I've gone to meet somebody to go in and look at the house. And this one, not too far from here, this woman showed up and she literally rolled down the window about halfway and she just held me the key. I'm like, okay, you want me to go in by myself? Yeah, it was my parents' house. I just can't go in. I'm like,
yep.
Okay, I get it. I understand. Tremendous deal, right? Because they'll do anything to get rid of it. They don't want to deal with it anymore. Wow. So naturally, all that stuff you said was not the original plan, right? So
that was not the original plan.
So, and the reason I bring that up is because I think probably like a lot of the great software companies out there, you guys have evolved over time and seen, the things. One, I think it helps that you come from being an investor, right? Being on that side, doing acquisitions and dispositions, but seeing what the problems that your clients have, because you're technically were your client at one point, kind of like me.
Yeah.
And, I love that you guys are always tweaking and finding ways to do it better.
Yeah. Like when we first started, we were like, hey, this could be like a cool thing. And originally we were just trying to make enough money to kind of cover our own marketing. We were like, that'd be awesome. And now we're like, oh, wait, we're so dumb. We should just do this instead.
Yeah. Well, that's Easy REI Closings was started for us and a couple of our friends. It wasn't, I mean, we had dreams of it becoming this, but also if it had just had 5 clients, we'd probably been just as happy too.
Yeah, just as happy, right?
Yeah. Wow.
It was just like a nice feedback loop too, because you talked a little bit about like how you constantly like reiterate like our models as an example. We're on like version 15, at least, right? Really? Like we just scrap and then like rebuild them and scrap and rebuild them, like get new data sources, add those in. Like it's just like a continuum of like perpetual improvement, I would say.
I tell people we have a whiteboard graveyard. If you walk around our office, there's whiteboards every place where we'll sketch stuff out and always take a picture of it. Oh, this is the new plan.
Yeah.
And then
you
some
think
of
it's
it
such
works.
A good plan.
Yeah, dude. In my wholesaling company, we went through this so much. Yeah. But I think this is the plan. Oh, that didn't work. Well, okay, we're going to scrap the parts that didn't. Let's redraw and refigure it out and keep tweaking. And I think that's ultimately what makes you successful is you don't quit.
Exactly.
The first time something goes sideways.
Oh yeah, I think anyone can do anything if they're willing to put up with the pain to build it for as long as possible.
I tell you, if you're good with taking a baseball bat to the face over and over and over again, you should be an entrepreneur and working for free while you do that. If you're good with that, like running your own business is for you.
Like no salary for like the first 4 years or all that good stuff.
Oh my God. I tell people here I'm the lowest paid person in the building. Because you got to make sure that your team's all getting paid. So what's the future for DataFlix? I know you guys got lots of cool things coming up. Can you talk about any of those?
Yeah. So we have a ton of new products that are coming out, and just to kind of give some perspective as far as like what we're trying to do. Well, first, what we have today, we have an investor product, a realtor product, and obviously our skip tracing. We have some other tools that kind of sit on top of those, but those are our flagships. Mm-hmm. An example is like our market map tool that I brought up earlier. Yeah. So as we go here, a lot of like what we've been requested is obviously the AI product is more designed for like scaling companies that are really doing like 3-5 transactions a month, and they're just trying to scale to be as big as possible and really get as much market share as they can. So now it's more about building like, kind of some entry points for people who are just getting started, or maybe some of those mid-market folks. So we're rolling out a product that's just like stacked data that has no AI involved in it. Mm-hmm. And we're also going to be rolling out some PPL. So on the PPL side, obviously it's super, super hot right now. I think if you're not doing PPL, like,
dude, it's come out of nowhere. When it first came out, I'm like, this is kind of dumb. Why would I want to do that? And then I paid, $30,000 a month for PPC, and I'm like, oh, I guess it doesn't.
Now I get it.
I guess it makes a little more sense now because I'm tired of paying for leads that are terrible.
Yeah, so like we have an agency component too. So like we do a lot of like PPC and just like general advertising for people as well. That's still more for like the people who are definitely more advanced or like trying to scale up. Yeah. Unless you have like 10,000 a month, we don't really recommend you to like kind of start there.
That's what I hear from people. Like even some of the Bolt and Bateman and all them guys, like they just won't deal with you if you're not spending 10 grand. It's just not worth it.
I mean,
you're not going to get good enough results.
Exactly. And like, that's the big thing where it's like all of this, like the worst thing that you can do for like any marketing at all in this space is not spend enough money to optimize for one, or two, to like get an actual conversion. Right. And a lot of these markets, like think about like San Diego. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've seen cost per acquisitions for like 15,000. Yeah. And if you're not even spending 10, like you just don't stand a chance.
Right. And then you're going to say it's the marketing channel, and it's clearly not the marketing channel.
Exactly.
The marketing channel works just great for other people.
Right.
No, you definitely have to put enough money and time into something for it to work.
Yeah, for sure. So like the whole point of PPL is to kind of like lower that barrier of entry where like you can do digital, but like you at least can start there and then maybe add in PPC and then, kind of stack all those. Like our mentor says it so beautifully, but he's like, it's not about like, you're trying to stack as many marketing channels as you can together and really like get your total blended like leads down so that you can get like a blended cost per acquisition that is really good.
Nice. I love that. So All right, so lots of cool stuff. I definitely want to bring you and have you talk to the easy clients, because that's our ideal person, right? Is our avatar is somebody who's doing 2 to 3 deals a month and looking to grow. And I think we started talking about this earlier. The thing for me is I always want to bring in great providers who can help them in their business to do more deals, right? Because obviously, the better it is for them, the better it is for us. So I think that'll be super exciting. So what is the best way for people to track you down? I know you said you're starting to do a bunch of social media stuff.
Yeah, we're actually launching some content in the next 30 days, which we're super pumped about. We do a lot of webinars and education, for a lot of other companies. So we're trying to bring it in-house and have it for users and anyone else who wants to see it, obviously. So the first thing I would recommend people to do is to download the market map. It's totally free. You can download any county that you want and get a complete landscape of the top zip codes and the top neighborhoods in your area, what's the best buy box and things like that.
That's cool.
And it'll give you a good sense of what we do. And it'll also kind of help you re-establish the way that you do your marketing today. And I think that's a great starting point.
Cool. So we can put a link for that in the notes here. And if you're getting this on Instagram or YouTube, go to our YouTube page and we'll have the links for that. So that'll be cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. And are you going to be doing Instagram stuff too and all that? Or
yeah. So we're going to try and launch all the platforms. We'll see. There's going to be so much that goes wrong. But yeah, we're going to try and do all the major platforms. Not full long form YouTube yet, but that's coming in the next 90 days.
Nice. It's exciting.
Yeah, we're pumped.
That'll be good. That'll be good. Well, cool. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on today, driving all the way down from Knoxville. Fascinating to learn about what you're doing. Now I see why, some of the small groups that we are in, I see that you guys are recommended all the time. And I think once you get out there and start, really showing everybody what you guys do, you're just going to absolutely blow up. So,
thanks, man.
So get in there now and download that map and then jump on a call with these guys before your county's gone, and 2, why they're still cheap, because the busier you get, the more expensive things are. So, cool, man, appreciate you coming down.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.